So everyone is talking about the global AI race.
But then you also have the early adopters. UAE is a very, very good example because it was the first country to have a Ministry of AI. It was the first country to have an AI university.
How do we prevent these massive number of plagiarism?
It took me 3 years to publish when I was doing my PhD in a ABS 3-star ranked journal. Now, if machines are helping us to cheat faster than they can detect, then that's a huge problem.
First, the step is that licensing model going through to make sure that that body of information is trusted. For example, article that you're reading by asking more questions.
Writing the article with AI is wrong practice.
It's like any tool.
Are we teaching children to use ChatGPT? Is that AI literacy?
If behavioral skills is the real differentiator, are we obsessed with technical skills?
That's a very good question, because what becomes more important where access to data learning is faster? In order to reach that stage, that specialization needs to be backed by the bigger names.
But they're losing contracts.
Big brand names are there which can do pretty much everything. But when it comes to real specialization that you're talking about, that capability is held by smaller firms, not by bigger firms. Welcome to the Reframe Lab, where conversations shape perspectives. With every podcast, our aim is to uncover hidden aspects that are shaping our businesses and our societies.
Kamran, thank you so much for joining us today. So everyone is talking about the global AI race. And I suppose that's how the conversation is being framed. Now, there seems to be two schools of thoughts here. One that argues that countries rise to great power and prosperity because they're the ones that have invented the technology first, especially the general purpose technologies like AI, and AI is a general purpose technology, but just like electricity and steam engine. But then there is another school of thought, and that's being pushed by Professor Jeffrey Ding. And what he is saying is that it's not about being the first to invent. It is about the countries being able to diffuse the innovation rapidly. And so we can see from that lens that the Gulf, that is what they're doing. The Gulf is pushing AI technology, it's being woven right into the fabric of its institutions, the fabric of its society. And we can see it in the education system, how rapidly AI is being deployed and scaled. But with that comes risks. It comes major risks. And so, and this really brings me to you, Kamran, to what you do. You've been an advocate, you've championed open source research, democratized knowledge. You're an entrepreneur, the founder of Knowledge E, and you've pushed for open source platforms, and now you're deploying AI. But what we know is a number of publishers around the world are reporting record numbers of plagiarized work, AI manuscripts submitted, resubmissions. And it's not just the publishers. There are anecdotal evidence of universities around the world where students are plagiarizing their work. We have potentially a catastrophic situation when it comes to the ethical and the legitimacy of research. And so I pose the question to you now. What are you doing about this issue?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Malak. Thank you for having me today. My name is Kamran Kardan. I'm the founder and CEO of Knowledge E. Knowledge E was built with the purpose of moving towards a more knowledgeable world and harnessing the power of knowledge to solve challenges around the world and to help countries move towards learning-based societies and learned-based economies. So that's the fundamental purpose of having the company. I've been years working in the publishing industry, almost 20 years, going through various stages of digital transformation from print to online databases to searching, all of that. And as you mentioned, yes, we've been on a mission to democratize access to scientific literature. And with AI comes a lot of opportunities. Now, looking at it from a global perspective and the two schools of thought, it's very interesting how you're putting it, and it's interesting how countries are following. So you've got those who are behind the technology, where it started in the US, and you have China following very closely. And there's a global competition on that level. But then you also have the early adopters. UAE is a very, very good example because it was the first country to have a Ministry of AI. It was the first country to have an AI university. They launched one of the largest large language models, Falcon. Then it was K2, and recently another one, Arabic based. So a lot of activities are going. We were fortunate to host and to run the AI Future Summit, which was bringing the great leaders of higher education together to see what are the various practices. And it's great to see all the different applications. But one thing that I always fundamentally say is that we need to look at any technology that comes on board as a tool and not as a replacement. There's always a human element to it. And what is happening in this world of misinformation and disinformation, and I'll get back into the whole challenges in the higher education ecosystem, what's happening with the plagiarism issues, with the retractions, so the reliability of that body of scientific information becomes more and more important. Now, what's happening is with large language models, of course, the biggest challenge was the hallucination issue, and how much of that content can be trusted when you're answering questions, because more and more people are relying, more and more people are asking private questions. There's businesses sharing business insights, there's researchers sharing sensitive research data, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of reliance on all of that, and how much can be relied without the correct referencing and that clear traceability. So there's a lot of challenges, as you mentioned. The way that we've tried to tackle this issue is basically, I'll take you back to the reason of the project that we started, which was Zendi, to democratize access to research. Like, you've got global challenges. We had the pandemic, there's global warming, there's so many things happening around the world. And in order to solve these, there needs to be a collective, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary approach to solving problems. And you need to have access to the latest research. Mm-hmm. Now, what is happening now is that research is behind paywalls, and there are high subscription fees that need to be paid in order to have access to that research. And because of the value chain that the publishers bring to it, of course, on one side, you have the open access as part of that whole open science movement, but there's issues around the sustainability. There's been successes, there's been failures, but in general, there is a global challenge of having access to the content. So the first thing we did with Zendi was let's try and remove those barriers. Let's make whatever is open more discoverable and more accessible. And second, let's also make it more trustworthy by trying to apply the various filters, being able to, for example, identify retractions and so on and so forth, and to make access to that scientific body of knowledge affordable. So free, accessible, discoverable, affordable. Along came OpenAI, and then, in that whole mission of accessibility and discoverability, there's huge power with AI, but when they say with huge power, there's a lot of responsibility as well. So that comes to the ethical side and the transparent side of AI. What we did as a small company, right? But, we always try to do things the right way. First thing we did is we shared our principles, our intention. What do we plan to do with the data? Yeah. So what we published was our AI imperatives. And at the time, we were looking for similar companies in the domain, and no one had actually done that. No one was sharing what they plan to do with the data. Because when you upload the information, when the information is available in the large language models, that data is used, and that traceability is not there. You don't know where the answers are coming from. Recently, there's tweaks and things in order to make it better, but it's like, for example, you have some information, even personal information, that goes in there, And then in order to trace that back to the source, it's like finding a strand of pasta in a whole bowl of spaghetti. It's like almost impossible to trace it back. Of course, the technology has evolved that we can get into more details later. So what we did, we shared our intention. This is how we want to do it. Then what we said is, let's work with the publisher community and let's work on a license model, right? Because it's important to have currency. It's important to have that, constant relationship that if there is a retraction, if there's an errata, if there's any changes to the content, that could be fed back from the publisher, but also there's permissions that comes from the publisher that can also be transferred to the authors later on, because that's another a separate issue that can be a different conversation.
Yeah, Cameron, thank you for that, but I don't think you're answering the most pertinent question.
No.
How do we prevent this massive number of plagiarism, and how do we do that?
Yep.
Because at the moment, everyone seems to be working and deploying AI, and
Yes.
you've given us this excellent tool, but you're not actually solving the real issue.
Yeah.
And so, as an academic myself, and I know speaking with Imran as an academic too, we are concerned that AI will be pushing this scientific community into a path of no return, where no one is going to trust research anymore.
So just to add numbers to what Malak is saying, it took me 3 years to publish when I was doing my PhD in a ABS 3-star ranked journal.
Yeah.
But now Springer Nature last month has reported that 40% of the articles they have received are AI plagiarized.
Yeah.
Now, if machines are helping us to cheat faster than they can detect, then that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So it's going on two strands. We were on a disruptive strand where things were not working and they were sitting at the verge of disruption, where AI has taken it right down too far on the other end. So how do we solve that problem?
It's a great question, and I was building up to it. So all what I was saying is part of the background towards, okay, what can work? So first, the step is, that licensing model going through is to make sure that that body of information is trusted, right? Then the second element, so trusted material is not just any tool. So basically, universities also need to understand what tools that they need to use. So for example, what we've built will not write a full article for you, but it will give you guidance. If there's something, it will give you reference. It will allow you to interact with that, for example, article that you're reading by asking more questions.
So in other words, you're saying that writing the article with AI is wrong practice?
So A to Z writing, of course, it's a wrong practice.
Right.
So basically, it's like any tool.
Boris Johnson writes books with AI, by the way.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, even 3 years ago, Springer Nature actually published the first AI written book.
Yeah.
As long as it's clear that it's mentioned that it's by AI, that's fine. I think an important element over here that I'm a really, really strong advocate is AI literacy. Now, there's a lot happening. I call it's the AI wild, wild west, right? There's companies every day springing up. There isn't a date. Just go through LinkedIn, the roles of AI just over 2 years. Basically, everyone has an AI role element added into their position. So people are learning fast. The technology is moving fast every day. When it comes to higher education, students are applying even faster than academia. But it's one of, like any other tool, I think it's important to understand the pitfalls, the dangers, and the right use and the wrong use. And that's why AI literacy becomes very important. Now, you mentioned about countries that are building technologies, others that are implementing very fast. I was just 2 weeks ago, I was in Kazakhstan, and I was amazed to see that the Ministry of Science and Higher Education is rolling out one of the most comprehensive AI literacy programs that I've seen in the world, where every student is going through full AI literacy.
I mean, what does that? Can we just break that down?
Sure.
Because that to me is, are we teaching children to use what ChatGPT? Is that AI literacy? Is that what it is?
No.
Can I add one more element to it? UNESCO says that 89% of universities worldwide are implementing AI.
Yeah.
But if you look at the stats from the same research of UNESCO, it says only 14% have the governance frameworks.
Yes.
So what you are saying in terms of literacy, do we think that universities are just checking the box?
Yeah.
Like it's a linear thing and
No,
they have
absolutely.
implemented AI, but that literacy is not there,
No,
governance is not there?
that's a danger. So that framework, that understanding what is acceptable and what's not acceptable is very important. I was talking to two professors in Uzbekistan just a few days back, where they were saying that basically we're just shifting our assessment model because basically nothing can be trusted.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's fine, but still it's a tool. So you need to be able to use that tool within limits, because there's so many benefits that AI can bring that, given the risks, it's like a calculator in mathematics.
But I would argue that,
Yeah.
and I kind of throw that back at you.
Yeah.
Students and I've seen it. Students that use AI are using it to find out the answer, write their assignment for them.
Yeah.
So where is the benefit to a student? I can't see it.
So the benefit to a student is when you want to go through idea formation. So you use it as an assistant. Use it to help you with ideas.
But how do you stop students there?
Okay.
Because you can't.
So the way that you can stop is, so I'm no expert in assessment, but from a person who is working in I've got kids at school, right? The first thing that I asked my kids' school was, is there any changes given the rise of AI? Is there any changes in the form of assessment? And basically there was like, no, it's not allowed. That for me, it was like, that was the worst answer that can be given, right?
By the way, just adding to that, my son has just appeared in GCSEs and he appeared for his papers from home.
Yeah.
All the papers were given from home. I was amazed because he had 3 cameras, our cameras, one on the mobile, 2 on laptops. And as soon as the paper is served to him, he cannot shift to any other software. It locks the screen.
Yes. Yeah.
And technology is so well developed that if someone else types it for him, technology will pick up that he's not typing in. Someone else is typing in. So AI is making an impact when it comes to assessment. I would have never thought of appearing GCSEs with the comfort of my home. He appeared for 3 papers.
There's many different applications. For example, in the forum that we had, like Khalifa University, they had a whole assessment AI model where basically they could even predict certain grades that could allow for the professors and teachers to actually focus on weak areas and to be able, so that whole idea of personal education, 100% whenever new technology comes, there's trial and error, and there will be error. And I think the benefits are far greater than the faults. But the faults, I think, with the right governance, with the right literacy programs, with the right guidance, educators, schools, universities, policymakers, they need to be able to move faster than the adoption of the technology, because the technology is out there, the students will be using, but unless we give them the right guidance or we guide them towards the right tools, then of course we have so many different cases of misuse.
So training is really important now. And at the moment, I suppose universities are failing, would you say?
It's a wide spectrum. There's some universities that are acting very fast, there's some not. But again, there's other concerns on the use of the applications and the data that we still don't know. But it's one of those things, I think, in the technology, those who adopt fast and learn from their mistakes and adapt and move forward, those are the ones that would be winning in that race. Of course, those who control the technology, it's in any industry. Those who control the technology, the standards, that's something. I remember doing a business course in China many years, and there was a Chinese professor and saying, he was talking about standards. He was saying, one of the biggest dominance of US is because if you look at any standards, they're based in the US. So basically they're controlling everything that is linked to that industry. So it was very interesting from his perspective to look at this and say, okay, whoever controls the standards controls the direction of that industry.
So Kamran, building up on what you were reflecting a while back with respect to literacy and giving more awareness around digital skills. World Economic Forum suggests, if we look at the skills list for 2030, the top rated skill is behavioral skills. It's not technical skills. If behavioral skills is the real differentiator, are we obsessed with technical skills then?
That's a very good question, because what becomes more important where access to data, learning is faster, and basically whatever questions you have can be quickly answered in the click of a button. What differentiates you, right? So that sort of critical thinking element, those human interactions, those what some call soft skills, some call meta skills, these become more and more important. So again, I'm not a policymaker, but it's one of those elements that also needs to, at the same time, be further developed, and they go hand in hand. So I think, someone needs to have that sort of lens, looking from the top and being, able to identify these and to be able to combine them together. How can we use technology for the benefit of society without damaging the skill sets that are required for us to be able to be competitive in the future?
Okay, let's talk about business in this Gulf region. You're based in Dubai. I believe you've opened up in Saudi. What are the opportunities for SMEs such as yourselves in Saudi? Is it easy to do business in Saudi Arabia?
Yes. So we started up the office in Saudi Arabia around 3 years ago. It's easier for bigger companies that are established. They have big names. But when it comes to smaller companies, that's something that takes time to develop.
What are the challenges?
So in general, there's things that when it comes to different procedures, red tape and everything, it's a country that's really transformed very fast. And there's ambitious projects. There's a vision to excel in many, many different areas. And that fast transformation, that fast moving, sometimes takes time to make adjustments and adaptations for it to become like something that all different players can be able to. So like big, large companies where they've been now moving their headquarters towards Saudi Arabia, there's been a lot of focus on the development, on the entertainment, on the tourism sector. In our sector was the higher education sector. Part of the Vision 2030, the vision is there. And basically the steps are happening in moving towards that vision. Of course, there's challenges. There's big ambitions, but there's a lot of potential. Who
takes the biggest share, especially in your sector? Because I feel like you are facing the real pains, and we operate in that market.
Yeah.
Who, in your view, is taking the biggest share?
In general,
is it the consulting firms?
It's the big consulting firms.
And do you think that's right? Are they cut? I know it's a sensitive question, but my real question over here is: do they have the capability to serve the needs in your view?
So the thing is that I think specialization is very important.
Very true.
Yeah. So being able to identify the specialists in a field will make a big difference.
And specializations are always niche. It's not necessarily with big brand names. It may hold somewhere.
So in order to reach that stage, that specialization needs to be backed by the bigger names because they are already established.
But they're losing contracts in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. They start with trust, but then that trust gets lost, right?
Why?
I think there's a lot of generalization there, if I'm not wrong. These big brand names are there, which can do pretty much everything. But when it comes to real specialization that you're talking about, that capability is held by smaller firms, not by bigger firms.
However, I have a success story. So in this particular, and this is related to Neon Project. So Neon Project, there's various elements.
These days.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But there was one element, but again, that it comes to the vision. The vision is there, right?
Yeah.
The elements, the components, they're passionate people that care about the vision. But of course, it's, there's a lot of noise, right? And you can't criticize for not being heard because there's a lot of noise out there, right? So in terms of the vision is there, the willingness is there. And I think these are very positive aspects, that when there's a match and when that vision matches the right specialization, wonders happen. So this particular project, I named it, but we can go without a name. So
I mean, you can please feel free to name.
Yeah,
Give
no,
us
I
the
did. I did give the name of the overall project, but
Yeah.
it was a project, and actually, the project was very interesting because it was looking at higher education from a very different angle that the norm is out there, right? In terms of faculty incentives and so on. There were so many different elements, and actually, we were bidding. We received this tender and we wanted to bid. Actually, what happened is we thought that, okay, maybe if we partner with one of the big names, maybe we have a better chance for the reasons that I mentioned. So we actually had a meeting with that vendor, and they said, no, we have this and we'll do it by ourselves. We don't need you.
This is the larger.
Company.
They came back to you later.
No, and in this particular case, we actually got awarded the project.
Yeah, because I think the Gulf
Marvelous.
may be waking up to
Yes.
the fact that the larger companies and
It
the
is actually-
smaller,
it is absolutely, yeah.
smaller companies can do the same
The
thing.
niche specialized companies.
Is it niche or is it AI or technology that is being deployed?
On
is
that
allowing-
element, it wasn't technology.
No.
It was the specialization, right? It's doing things differently.
So maybe these big firms are just becoming complacent.
It could be that this is one thing. So it could be a trend, like at the beginning, as I said, like noise. That noise goes down, the results come out. And there's many examples in the region where, for example, there's been big projects awarded to big names, but at the end of the day, those projects were a failure. But then there was like small companies involved because they had the dedication, because they had the professionalism, because they had the care, because they thought big. Then results were. So when we started, we were a very small company, but we got pulled into a national initiative. And this national initiative
You got pulled into. What do you mean by you got pulled into?
got pulled into in a way that it had an element of capacity building and development. And there was no other company that really had specialized in that area. And we were the only one who had some experience. So naturally, we were the only company that could deliver. So we started small, but then it turned into a huge national project, and it kickstarted many, many changes that still I have people coming to me and say, Knowledge changed my life because of the training that I went
amazing.
through. So
Because of the training.
because of
What type of training?
So these, like when we talk about training, is looking at a project from perspective. So this was like, there were different elements. One was looking at interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity and how to initiate that framework within a higher education sector. So part of that is education, training, coaching, consulting, having collective, having meetings, running events. So it was one project, but it had so many different elements around it. Another was really looking at how teaching is happening at universities, and we basically specialized it by subject. Some were more successful, some were less successful, but we had some great successes where, for example, that teaching excellence program turned into successful accreditation, and many educators came out of that. They, on turn, will educate more and more people. So in that particular case, again, there was a vision to move towards a knowledge-based economy. And there were people that were bold to take those steps. It had the political backing as well. There was funding and all of those. And it turned out to a successful model that was actually presented at UNESCO and United Nations as a country, supporting, the whole, lifelong learners and, citizens. Like for me, it's like, no one should be left out. It shouldn't be education, higher education, access to research should not be limited to the elite. These things, when I talk about democratization, I don't just talk that is, everyone should have access. Nothing made me happier once someone, so on our platforms, ND, you can add your role, lecturer, PhD student, and there's an other. Someone said housewife. For me, that I was so happy because basically that meant that, it's not limited to anyone. A housewife should have access to the research if she wants to learn, if she wants to continue. So for me, it's like for everyone.
So yes, I mean, it's very important for everyone to get access to knowledge. But coming back to the plagiarism issue, do you feel that we may be in a race to the bottom?
Mm-hmm. So I think the plagiarism issue
in the sense that everyone now knows how to write articles and because of AI. But then what we're doing is where we are moving, where it's the race to the bottom rather than the best is selected.
Yeah, I think there's a big challenge over there. And I think even the tools are not living up to the expectations. I've seen like feedback from various tools that are used at universities that presumably detect the AI use that are they're like not getting it 100% right. So it is a challenge. And for me is 2 ways that you can try and solve, 3 ways actually. One is to provide with the right tools that do it in the right way, and they have certain limitations. Second is the education part and the literacy part. What is right? How can you use it better? How can you use it to your benefit? How to apply critical thinking? How to use your own ideas? How to change it? So the right way of using. That's also very important. And number 3 comes down to the assessment. How we assessed. I think ruling out saying no AI is not right. And just giving that total freedom is also not right. So as educators, the most successful are the ones that actually, I've seen a case which I liked, where basically, even if the students were using AI, they needed to explain how they used it, where they used it, where they added. So they needed to explain what they did. There's an oral part that has been introduced into different assessments. So 100% with any technology that comes to aid, and especially something like this that is moving so fast, our assessments, our expectations should change as well.
Has Knowledge E developed AI tools?
Yeah, so we have developed tools that help with research discovery and literature review. So basically we've got limitations.
Research discovery?
Yes.
So
the way that it works is, so we've created a closed large language model and we connect it to the world corpus of scientific literature. We use RAG and agentic technology, so we don't train the model based on that information. Then we can also connect it to a learning management system. We can connect it to your local repository, to your policies, to your guidelines. So it's more like a guidance that, okay, you ask a question. I want to, for example, apply for a grant. Okay, this is what the literature says. These are the funding opportunities. This is a 3-hour video on how to write a grant.
A 3-hour video to
For example, yeah.
Or does it write it for you?
No, that's the thing. Yeah. So it tells you.
So what's the point of using it then?
So the point of using is getting that guidance that you can do it better, right? So I'm strongly against that whole part of, okay, can you write it for me? So yeah, these are the different ways to do it. So I want to study in this field. Okay, it's good to read this, it's good to read these. These are useful articles. Here's a summary of an article, but here's an article that you need to study more. And these are questions that you can ask for that deeper learning.
So this system, is it free, available for everyone?
So we have set certain free use. So for example, there's elements like insights where it provides you a meta summary of an article to find if it's relevant or not, right? Once you find the relevancy, then you might need to read it. But in order to find that relevancy, rather than going through 100 articles, now you use the power of AI to go through a meta summary to say, okay, no, this is relevant. Let me save it to read it for later. This one is not relevant. Okay. So we've developed that tool in order to be able to help with the research. There's a free component. Some of the elements are free. Now, for example, you can ask questions in any language or translate it again, but then we've made it affordable. So as an individual, you can have a subscription, as an institution, but in an affordable way.
So what's the impact that you're looking for?
The impact that we're looking for is to have a source of truth when it comes to the use of AI. So that's the direction we want to go.
Yeah.
A fact checker.
If there was a tool that wrote the whole grant application for me, I would buy that tool rather than spending 3 hours of listening to a video.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that?
Yeah, so the replacement, that's something that, there are tools.
Is that something you want to develop or you don't believe in?
No, So we've got limitations within the platform that because of that general belief that, okay, there's certain things that they need to still be there.
But why does it need to be there? So if I'm an academic or I'm an SME and I want to apply for grant funding, we know organizations when they do have the money, they pay consultants to write their applications for them.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between making an AI tool that writes the application for you?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
So there needs to be a human element. So even if there's a tool that writes it fully, I think that as an individual, even if a consultant gives you something, you still need to have your own opinion and to critically look at it, right? Yeah. There's dangers, like even in, for example, AI use that, in some applications there's repetitions. And sometimes you find hallucinations, repetitions, and then all of a sudden that can have a damaging effect on the career of that person if it's a replication of something else that someone's done.
Yeah.
So there are huge downsides to it as well, that if you don't have the human insight, then definitely maybe it will solve one. Sometimes you get away with it, but is that the fundamental way to correct way? I would say no.
So Kamran, all my life I have engaged with executives in the learning and development scenario. Last year I got this chance of working with undergraduate students. It was a completely different ballgame. I struggled to keep them focused. And I started looking deeper that is there something wrong in my methodology? Where is it that I'm missing the trick? And more I investigated, I started realizing that these unlimited mobile scrolls, they are creating a huge menace because they have a huge impact on their attention spans. And no matter what you do, the attention span shifts very quickly. Even if they're engaged in a boring game, it's not engaging them, they'll shift. So don't you think we have to seriously rethink our philosophy for education? Because the old school would not work with this younger generation. They have moved on. Their attention spans are lesser and lesser. If we keep pushing the same old model, making them think, making them write, maybe the job is something else. And I don't know the right answer. I just need to look into your reflections. You work in this environment. How do you see it?
Yeah, I actually echo the concern that you have. And again, I'm no expert in education, but from someone looking at it from the outside, already, even before AI, there was a problem in general with the education system, focusing on memorization and learning rather than problem solving and all of that. I see some different elements on IB curriculum. I've even seen changes in schools that have adapted to really building those skills that are required. What is the future job market? But again, this is now with online scrolling, social media, so many different elements that are coming out there is even making it more challenging. So if as educators, as policymakers, we don't act fast and we don't create an education system that is engaging.
But what is the solution? Because everyone has identified the problem. We all know the problem. Yeah. But what is the solution?
So again, I'm no expert to provide.
So in terms of training, because you deal with training, and that's one of your services. Yeah. So how have you created a new generation of training? Yeah.
So basically, that training constantly needs to adapt. For education,
its context is specific.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when it comes to education, higher education has a different requirement. K-12 has a different requirement, but definitely one of the elements that I'm seeing is that engagement level. In general, what I feel is we need to create that problem-solving mindset, and it's even changing, like with all these STEAM, whatever you call it, different methodologies that are used, that a challenge is being provided, and then you use all the different tools. It could be a game. It could be a game-based learning. So basically changing that, making it more interactive. Again, you need to bring in experts. This is basically my 2 cents of looking from an outside. That engagement is an important component.
And I think we ourselves as educators are on a learning track at the moment. I don't think anyone has the solution, to be honest.
No. But what is concerning is a potential disconnect, and that the gap is just growing between the academics and and students.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Oh yes.
Is that
yes.
what is that what you're seeing on
Yeah, that's what I see as
everyday
well.
basis?
I see it on everyday basis.
What is it you see?
So basically, that gap is like if we use the old methodologies
Yeah.
in teaching and try and use the same old recipe, it was already failing.
Yes, but do you communicate with staff? So staff members in the Gulf, for example, can you see that have you identified that there is a gap?
Yeah, so there's always early adapters, and there's like those that are resisting, very strongly to these new methods. And it's basically a challenge for even leadership to be able.
Who's resisting?
So part of it's faculty, it's educators, because when it comes to the technology, again, I mentioned it before, the students, the younger, they are the fastest to adapt.
And you're finding what staff members are resisting
So
to.
in general, that is, you find some that
Yeah.
are very fast, and I gave examples that they're adapting their teaching, coming up with new methodologies.
And is there a difference between Dubai and Saudi Arabia?
I'll add one example to what Kamran is saying. During COVID time, 1 month's period notice was given to universities in the UK to go completely online.
Yeah.
Believe me, 30% of the faculty resigned
Yeah.
because they are not used of teaching on camera.
That's a fantastic example that you gave. COVID hit, we were already doing that. Already some countries that had moved towards online, those ones that were ready. First thing we did, we did a free webinar on basically online teaching methods. So basically we took the experience that we had, and we're already implementing it, something that we're already knocking on the door and saying that this is what you need to adapt, these new technologies. So we did a free webinar right at the very beginning, and we had like one of the most heaviest show ups on that particular webinar, because basically it was a challenge that everyone facing. So unless you prepare, then you need to react, and when you react, there's so many errors, there's so many mistakes, so basically it's understanding that challenge, the challenge of the future, and being able to prepare. No one has the answer 100%, but if you don't think about it, or even in the worst circumstances, you can't prepare.
Very true.
But at least if you think about it, if you start testing, if you're open to that technology, even if you make a mistake, you can correct it. But by not reacting, by not doing anything, that gap just widens.
This is one example on one end. On the other end, what universities in the UK, they are in a mess, by the way. Research confirms 58% of enrollments this year have been either hybrid or online. And I still know universities in the UK investing in building campuses. And those campuses are empty. They're empty classrooms sitting out there. But no one tells those leaders that, look, the trend is changing. Things are changing. They are not willing to adapt.
So higher education, and also the City of London has a serious issue with empty buildings. This shift from to online has created empty buildings. But do you see the same problem happening in Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is building. It is building its infrastructure. And the question is, should it actually be investing so much in bricks and mortar?
They are. I work very closely with Ministry of Education in Saudi. They have massive investments with Google, with Microsoft, especially Google Classrooms, and the infrastructure of Google is right down being cascaded to all the government institutions and schools over there, which is very impressive. Public schools. I've not seen it. The way they have gone through with it, they have 200,000 school teachers. They have identified high stars to try and implement all these technologies so that it can be cascaded right down at the roots. So they are doing some impressive work with it.
Yeah.
Do you are you not concerned with,
So definitely concerned. So for example,
with children?
Yeah. So schools and higher education, they're completely different environments. Even in teaching, you've got pedagogy and you've got andragogy. So the whole principles of adult learning and everything is very different. So even in the working environments, in the learning environments, that's a completely a different scenario. So when it comes to move to online, that preparedness for like online teaching methods, teaching in a classroom is different from teaching online.
And are you an advocate of teaching online in primary schools?
For primary schools, there's so many different, again, I'm not the expert in education, but as a parent, I feel that there's a benefit. There's so many social benefits by having groups. However, with online, so those kids, that I'm for my own kids as well, going through school during COVID, it was a really, really difficult time because first of all, schools were not prepared. But with any technology, for example, at the same time, kids, they have online tutoring, and that seems to be working and all those things. So again, there's no fixed rule. There's no, black or white to say this is correct. This is, it's basically, using technology in the right way. There's benefits in kids together, playing together, being in one room together. There could be other teaching elements that can be online. There's no one size fits all. And I think
so blended learning,
yeah, that could be an
Although
answer.
I am absolutely against blended learning for primary kids. Absolutely.
But
they should be interacting.
Yeah, the interaction,
physically.
but again, kids are also learning through games, right? So if those games can be educational in a way that can develop those skills, because like a lot of the technology that in the future is being built, a lot of the problems are going to be solved in game-like environments. However,
game-like environments
as well.
True,
There could be dangers as well, because basically the same game-like environments are used for political means and other things as well.
True.
So that's why that education, 2 days ago, the Minister of Science and Higher Education of Kazakhstan, he was saying social media literacy. So basically
social media literacy,
right? So for me, it was like, 100%. Kids are exposed to that, but do they have a filter? Do they know how to tell what is right, what is wrong? Do they know how to set limits? Do they know how to? So that's a whole literacy. I don't have the answer, but it's an element that education systems need to look at, because it is something that kids are, when they're not at school, they're exposed at.
Maybe it's best just to not let them have exposure. Complete 100% no exposure.
Well, some governments have done that. I don't know if that's right, way to do it or not, because still they find a way to be able to do it, right? That's the thing. I think that we need to be able to adapt. We need to be really be able to think. We need to put ourselves in their shoes. That's I think the hardest part, and we need to think about the future possibilities.
I was surprised by one of my friends. He came to visit me, and he said that I did something very different with my son.
Mm-hmm.
And he said I sat down with him and I tried to see what's the life he's living. And he played a Roblox game with him.
Yeah.
And he said, unless and until you don't connect with your children at that level, you are really missing out on something big, because their life is very different to our childhood.
Yeah.
And we are assuming that it's exactly the same. Yesterday, I was listening to a TED talk by one of my colleagues, and he says that the world we are living in is going more and more into generalists, not specialists. We are coming from a world of specialists.
Yeah.
We were eye specialists, aeronautical engineers, and it was a world of specialization. But
Well, we have technology and specialists now.
Yeah.
Robots.
But now the individuals would be generalists, and then he classifies them into 4 categories of generalists. And you cannot park all the generalists in one basket, because generally, if you're not a specialist, they say you're a generalist, and then all generalists are classified as same. But generalists are not the same. They are different.
But it's not something new. So look at Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Right? So was he, an artist? Was he, was he an engineer? What was he? So it's like, that general approach was there. I agree to a certain extent. For example, let's take Minecraft, where you're building futuristic city, your different environments and everything. With tools in the future, now when it comes to the world of AI, we're not talking about unicorns anymore. We're talking about unicorns, where there's a single person who can, have different agentic AIs at his disposal and can run a whole company just as a single person. So it's the same with basically individuals. By having the right imagination right?
I can see how that can work as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yes.
As an entrepreneur, you do need to have kind of that general mindset. And but is it really going to work though if you're going to be developing, tech like renewable energy, engineering tech?
For some fields it works, for some it not, but you always have individuals that are passionate about blue sky research and they will want to learn more and more in their given topic. I think that all of them need to be given that freedom. I think in terms of that generalist approach, every discipline plays an important role. So for example, now in the UK, humanities, social sciences are being neglected, losing funding. But there was a very interesting project by University of Exeter working with the Met Office, their Faculty of Humanities, the medical school, and basically looking, when it comes to climate change, it's always been doom and gloom. And the narrative has always been, something terrible is going to happen. And that's not really working. So the whole idea is how you can use the power of words to instigate change and how you can back it by science. And there was art, there was performance linked to it, because performance and art, we still as human beings, we connect, and that can instigate change. So how can we merge science, all the different sciences, but all these different topics, every single one plays a role. COVID, it had a social element, it had, from urban planning to medicine, some of the things that the research might come out in the future, that there's learnings in terms of what was the effect on children? What was the effect on learning?
There was, we know that mental illness kind of shot up through COVID, and that's a real concern for me when it comes to this online learning.
Yeah.
There was a neurologist we interviewed, and he said you got to move away from e-learning to real learning.
Yeah, you're pushing for these new skills of the future, emotional intelligence, this general, being good at many things. But if they're not healthy mentally, because we are teaching them through online learning, then what are we producing? We're defeating the purpose.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to have that balance and not neglect. All those elements are very, very important.
Thank you, Kamran, for joining us today. It's been very interesting having and listening to your perspective on education and the knowledge economy and the impact of AI on our research and research integrity. I think we can take away one thing: no one has the answer, and we are all learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.